is Get Valiant.
And this is 187 on a Mother Wednesday. What's up, Josh? How you doing, man?
Oh, man, the big 187. And it feels like a really big 187, too, you know?
It is for you guys. I think today's kind of like a special little anniversary for you and Eric. And
It is, you know, and unfortunately, Eric could not be with us tonight. He had some stuff going on. But it's really weird that this ends up being the 5th anniversary of Get Valiant. And the only reason why I know this is because the first year, Eric had made a comment like, "Oh, it's been 1 year since we just started Get Valiant," and there was like a little image that I had saved. It came back up on my Facebook today, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like 5 years, you know? Where has 5 years gone of doing this podcast?" Who knows, you know? But it's pretty cool, man. Like, motherfucker.
Had to do it just for the sake of Eric. We were talking about Eric a little bit. Had to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh. Keep on going, buddy.
Yeah. All I was going to say is it's really cool that this has gone on for 5 years. You know, we have such an awesome fan base that we're a part of. And we're glad that, you know, people check us out. If we didn't have anyone watching this or listening to us, we wouldn't even be here, man. So everything is made possible because of the support of our friends who watch this. So thank you.
That's right. I mean, I think we're coming up on like a year or maybe even longer since I've jumped on now. And it's been fun, man. I appreciate you guys having me jump on the ride and get into fans.
I was going to say, if nothing else, you know, it's a way of improving the episode. It's good to have another perspective, especially since I do feel like Eric and I, for anyone who's been listening for like 4 or 5 years, you'd be like, God, these two guys think too much alike sometimes. And I still think even now, like if me and Eric differ, it's like just like a fraction of a point. So it's good to have another voice, you know, because otherwise it does sometimes feel like me and Eric like everything, you know, and not saying that you don't like everything.
I hate everything.
But I also think sometimes we all get to talk about the books, and it helps actually change the perspective a little bit. Where like someone will be like, "Yeah, what about like all these things that you might have missed?" Like, "Oh yeah, fucking that's right, I did miss all those things," you know. Or like the fact that we do get to talk about the books, and it just kind of helps you feel like understand like where you're coming from when you score it. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's all cool, you know, and hopefully we do 5 more years of this, and that's it, and then we're done.
Yeah, I hope we keep the 5 years, and hopefully we, you know, good stories like this. Scott saying we helped him through his family's house flooding, right? Back in, you know, and you know that things like that suck with life that happen, right? And that's the way I look at my comic books is an escapism. It's really I enjoy it, but it's really an escapism. I do this because I love talking about them because it's something to do. It escapes my mind from my day-to-day job, so it's something different, and it's really a pleasure to sit and talk about these books and enjoy something we're doing and talk about something positive, even if we're negative about what we're doing positive. But no, I think for genuinely we enjoy the books, and I think we give them a fair shot. I think, you know, if it's a Bloodshot book, you know Eric's gonna love it because it's Bloodshot.
Which is so weird that he's not here, you know, for this. He stood me up on our anniversary like that, you know. I can't even
divorce
in the doghouse. Dude's gonna be on the couch for some time, you know.
But it is what it is. So
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of comic books, lots of books. I think last week was a really good. I mean, there wasn't really a Valiant book, but it was a huge new comic book day.
Oh, I know. Like it was like Matt Kent Day was what it kind of was. It was a couple of different things because I was like, I think a lot of people were waiting for Berserker to finally drop, and that came out last week. And that's the book. For people who don't know, it's Matt Kent with Keanu Reeves writing it too. Or maybe it's just like Keanu's idea. I don't know. But it was also, I think the one that a lot of us were really excited about, it was also Bad Idea Day. It was the day that Bad Idea finally dropped their first book, which was ENIAC, written by Matt Kent also. Yes. And I think like it's, you know, we're never gonna like beat around the bush with it. Like it's obvious, like we're probably going to be excited about the Bad Idea books. We like Dinesh and Warren and Josh and Hunter, and we've met all those guys, so they're like friends, and we're going to be supportive of those books. Did you read it?
I did. Definitely read it. And I want to jump to Berserker. We were on Berserker for a second.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to read it?
I did.
So what characters did you feel came out during that? I had two real characters there that I kept like, oh my God, it's if you cross those two, if those two had a baby, there it is.
God, I don't know about two. I mean, to me, it just felt like an unkillable John Wick. And John Wick's already kind of like unkillable, but he was like a John Wick with powers.
Yeah.
And, it was a bloodbath of a book. But that's what I got out of it. I was like, oh, yeah, like, it's Keanu kind of like channeling a little bit more of like the John Wick, which I actually think is a good character for him.
Yeah. So I really picked up two characters, right? This guy who's 8,000 years old, this guy who's unkillable, guns, violence. It was Eternal Warrior and Bloodshot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really what I thought. Eternal Warrior, Bloodshot. That's what we got there. It was really, I enjoyed it. It was very surface level. Hopefully it gets to be more, but for a first issue, it was pretty good. 80,000 copies. Yeah. And then $1.3 million on the Kickstarter. So, I mean, I did back it, so don't think I'll be getting all the floppies when I got a hardcover that's going to come. But when you really get to it, that's really what I was like, oh my God, at the very end. Okay, this is Eternal Warrior and Bloodshot in one character. So
yeah, I actually told myself I wasn't going to buy a copy of Berserker because I was like, I don't really buy Boom, and like, it's crazy how successful that thing is. And I was like, I'm just gonna wait until it's like in a discount bin somewhere. Like someone's gonna order it, I'll pick up a copy for $1. But then I wanted a not second printing of a book that came out last week.
yes,
and I was like, oh, I really want to get that. I heard there's an extra page in this book that doesn't have that the first print, not in the first printing, but in the second printing had this extra page. So I was like, I got to get that. Found a retailer that had that book, and there was nothing else I wanted. And they wouldn't, and I had to make that like minimum sales amount.
Yeah.
So I bought like two variants of Berserker.
Oh,
so
nice.
I fed into it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm part of those 600,000 plus copies that were sold.
Dude, that's I think I went and got one as well. And then the other book I picked up that I actually really enjoyed was Noctera. Well, Scott Snyder's.
I had backed the Kickstarter, and then at the last minute I pulled out of it because I was like, I don't give a shit about this book at all.
Right.
And I hate it, and I don't do that ever. That's the only time I've ever like withdrawn my pledge on a book. But I was just like, why am I backing this? Like, I feel it was one of those things where I did it, and I was like, am I just backing it because it's Scott Snyder and making the book? I'm not like a huge Scott Snyder fan.
Yeah.
So I was like, no.
It wasn't bad though. I actually appreciated that one. I thought it was pretty good. So good first issue. I didn't even see the Kickstarter on it, but I saw the first issue. So going there for a little Bad Idea, getting that first print. So
yeah. Well, I had a hell of a time with my purchase of a ENIAC 1. If we have a minute.
Yeah. So did you get it day of or?
Yeah, I got day of. So like a lot of people, I was like, I really want to get the button. So if you guys don't know, I'm sure a lot of people already know this shit. So this is like, why am I even repeating it? But just for the sake of the conversation. Yeah, Bad Idea had this promotion with the button. And they needed to get their 2 billion clicks. And they got it. And then it was like, okay, the books will be coming out, like, so much after the time that we finally got that last click in. And, it's the guys that ran Valiant, and those guys were always so cool about doing things for the fans. They always got gold books. We get gold books now too, but that was something that they brought back when they brought back Valiant. And I think that what they're doing is kind of similar with the gold button. So if you were the first person to buy ENIAC at the shop, you got a gold button that says ENIAC 1. And I was like, I want to get one because first off, I think the world of those guys. And I obviously I still love Valiant, but like there's other books out there too. And I'm really excited for what Bad Idea is, just because I've looked at the previews of all these books. They look fucking awesome. Okay, pardon my language, but they look awesome, and I'm really excited for them. You know, and I like Matt Kent's work. And he had 3 books. He had a 3rd book that came out last week.
Fear Case,
yeah. And I bought the first issue of that too.
Yeah.
And that was good. So I think he had 3 books with 3 publishers. But I got out super early because I saw someone on the Bad Idea page who was like camping out. Jonah Harris, who he's a Valiant fan too, but he was camping out the whole night from his comic shop.
He spent 14 hours, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, is this what this is going to be? And I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I really want to do this. It would mean the world to me to be able to do it. And it just so happened that she could work from home that day. And we had kids over for school, because Wednesdays are a day that my kids have to do school at home, and their friends come over every other Wednesday. It was this Wednesday they came over. My wife did everything while doing her own job. And so I got to go out really early and wait in line at the mall. And I went around the mall to every door. It was still dark out, checking all the doors. Nothing was open. I was like, okay, I'm at the main door. I'll be good. It's freezing, super cold. And like when 9 o'clock hit, they opened a door by the movie theater. I didn't know this until then. I go over to that door, and someone had came into the mall right before I got in, for like 10 minutes before I got in. And I was talking to them, and they were just like, yeah, I just got here, like 10 minutes ago. And I was like, oh, I've been here for like 3 hours. But I wasn't going to be pushy about it. I would just talk to the shop, when they opened up. And the kid working the shop was like, oh, it's this dude. This dude was here first. And he got the button. And I was just I was unhappy about it. And I sent a very unhappy message to the people that own the shop. And I wasn't like mad at anybody, but I was just like, this is like the shittiest situation, because I was outside for hours. This dude showed up. He didn't know any different, But here's where like the whole thing takes a really Valiant twist. Was like I was mad, and I was really frustrated. I didn't even read ENIAC for like a long time in the day because I was so mad about the whole thing. But the next day, I got this message from the comic shop, and they're like, "Hey, something got dropped off at the shop for you." And I didn't think much of it. And for people who are watching this, I went to the shop last weekend because I was out with my son. It was his birthday, and my son got to discover wrestling finally. He's only 7. That's a whole different conversation. Yes. He loves wrestling though now. But I was like, hey, let's go swing by the shop. There's something there supposedly, for me. Let's see what it is. And this won't show up great on the screen, but apparently the guy who got the button, he felt bad about the entire mix-up because he was in line first for himself when the doors opened, and I was on the other side of the mall waiting. But he felt bad, and so he left a 9.8 signature series signed by Steven Segovia Shadowman 1 metal cover just for the shop to give to me.
Show it up there?
Yeah, so like right here.
And let me tell you, my favorite one of the metal covers too.
And let me tell you how floored I was, because I was just like, wow, like I was a little mad. I didn't try to cause a stink. It's not his fault. And on the back, there's a message and it says, I heard you were a huge Valiant fan. I felt a bit bad about the other day. Anyways, thanks for the pin. I'll see you at the next one. Much love, James. And he is like the co-CEO or CEO. I don't know if he's the CEO. He's something for an online retailer called Hive Comics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they do like a bunch of variant covers for a lot of different books. And I actually know his partner pretty well. I've been buying and selling books to his partner for the last couple of years. In fact, he bought a bunch of my deluxe edition Valiant books when I sold them.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a small world, but I was like, it's one of those things where I felt so bad that I even messaged him on Facebook. I was like, I hope you didn't feel like you had to do that, but thank you. And I told him I was sorry if anything I had said was rude or out of line, because, That's an expensive book he gave me. I don't know. Nobody knows yet what the buttons are going to do.
Right.
But I mean, I would imagine I don't own any metal book. I don't own any of the Valiant metal covers. They've always just been kind of like too pricey. But these are like a $300 book, graded, signed.
9.8. I mean, maybe even
least.
more.
Yeah.
With that's pretty good, dude.
Yeah.
That turns out what was a sad story, a pretty awesome story.
Yeah. It turns like a really bad moment where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm so mad. I don't know if I should be mad. And my wife was like, I would be mad.
Well, you could still go buy a button for $750 on eBay.
Yeah. And I mean, like, holy crap. It reminded me so much of when Divinity 1 dropped. And people were like, oh, Divinity, like, did you guys get your 1 in 40 covers? Oh, they're now selling for a crazy amount of money. Or like even like Savage, when the first Savage came out.
Yes. Yep.
And I remember I had to work so hard just to get a Savage #1 variant. It was like a crazy amount of work just to get one from Midtown.
Oh man, dude! But I'm pumped up that you got it, man. So
yeah, honestly,
it's,
like, if for anyone listening, if you haven't checked out the Bad Idea books, like, they're rad. Hive Comics has a Facebook page too. You should check them out. I'm pretty happy with them.
Yeah, check out Hive Comics. I was pumped up because I went to the store to do it, and right in front of me was a guy from Valiant fans, Stephen Coates. And so it's just like, dude, like, and it was a store that neither one of us normally frequent. To have that happen, like, kind of run into a Valiant fan, both buying the Bad Idea book. I do think it is the Valiant family is what we always kind of have said. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty true. That's kind of the way everybody's always kind of looked at it. And it's cool. It's good books. It's good creators. It's good team. It's the Valiant people that we were with Valiant for 5 years? I mean, 2012 to 2018, and so there's still a connection there. And it's, we wish those guys luck and support them, and we're still supporting Valiant, obviously, doing this podcast. So
yeah, the one thing that, like, I think kind of added to my bad day, and if I would have stayed off social media, I think I would have been okay with everything, But everybody that I associate, like, I talk to a lot of people online, like you, and I talked to Chris Amundsen, Old Moose, and our friend Todd Lewis, and a bunch of people. And
all showing their gold buttons.
Yeah, and they all got gold buttons. And I was like, I'm gonna get one too. I was even in an image that Dinesh retweeted or reposted where he's like, look at all these people camping out for their buttons. And I was like, and I wanted to be like, you can just delete me. I didn't get it. Because some fucking dude cut the line on me, but like, it's okay. We'll see what happens when the next one of those books comes out.
Faux show. Well, any Valiant news in the last couple of weeks?
There actually is a news item that came out last week. It actually came out Wednesday when I was pissed off. So I don't think either of us have read the Faith novel that came out, the young adult novel. From was it Julie Murphy who wrote that? I cannot remember.
Yeah, the dumpling lady.
But there's a second Faith novel coming out.
Raider Heights.
Yeah. So I, like I said, like, I haven't had the chance to read it. Some of the stuff that's come out during the pandemic, I just haven't had the money to purchase. Even though, like, my Valiant amount of books that I buy has been a little bit smaller, I just hadn't gotten around to that book, and I actually kind of forgot about it for a while until I saw that post on Wednesday. But there's a second book coming out, which makes me really happy because it does show that there is a market. I haven't heard of anyone. I don't know anyone who's read it yet, the first one. But it seems like it must have been good enough for there to be a second book. It must have had strong enough sales to warrant doing another one of these. I like the fact that Valiant can do novels too. I just bought the audiobook of Bloodshot not too long ago. So I'm really excited to get into that.
Oh, I'm excited for you to get into that too. That's awesome. So yeah, that is. So hopefully other mediums, I think it's good to show that. It almost got me to actually reach out and get one of the Funko Faith Pops. It's like a little sign that Faith is doing something. So you may want to swoop one of those up because we'll see. And
then you can be disappointed that nothing else that's on the back of that ever came out.
Dude, you can't see it down here, but I got a late Christmas present in the full series of the boys Funko Pops. So that made it.
Oh,
Boys
Man.
comic fan, boys TV show fan. Really, really happy. So
I've been trying not to get too crazy on Pops. And I was like, if you just do something I'm really, really into, I'll collect it. So like I was like, come on, man. Funko Pops of Valiant characters, I'm totally about that. When the Faith one came out, I spent probably like 30 something bucks just to get that one because it was brand new. It was released at New York Comic Con and I had to have it.
Yep.
And if you look on the back, about 5 or 6 more that are supposed to come out.
Yep, at least a Bloodshot, at least a Ninja Jacket.
Shadow Man, I think, and none of them came out. And not to shit on Faith or anything. I love the books. Jody Houser was a tremendous writer on the character. But I think that as far as like those Funkos look, I would have liked any of the other ones more.
Right.
And so it's just like, oh, what a like letdown that is.
It's weird because Faith is probably the most notable comic outside of Valiant's little circle.
Yeah.
And then you have Quantum and Woody, probably the next two. And then it's probably Exo and Bloodshot, right? It's just interesting the way that kind of is within the fandom. I mean, it is different. So, and I think all of us appreciate it, but may have wanted something else a little different. So it is what it is. But yeah. Do we want to get into the book that we're here to talk about today?
Yes. We can talk about Bloodshot 12. One Last Shot.
One Last Shot. It's a spoiler alert, and that wasn't to go over Eric's voice. He's not even here, but we're gonna spoil the crap out of it. It's Bloodshot number 12. One Last Shot, one shot, 12 issue done. Last arc. Let's go.
Yeah.
So let me share screen. Get us a little imagery coming up of whoops. Let's do that one. There we go. Bloodshot number 12.
Yeah, so this one, if you remember last time, Bloodshot and Kay and Wiggins, they went to that like underwater like lab or like server place. And then they had that fight with Zealot, and then they popped up and they fought Rampage, who was going by Harmony. And then Rampage uses his abilities to basically take over the minds of KT and Wiggins. So this issue featured them, Bloodshot kind of having to like let them beat up on him because he's got like, he's pretty strong. He would just mop the floor up with them. But he had to fight the people from the movie, and then one thing I think is we finally get kind of like a bit of a bloody Bloodshot versus Rampage fight, and I've been waiting for it for a long time. I don't know how to feel. Harmony, yeah. And honestly, I kind of don't know how to feel about it because, like, I feel like within this storyline, it made sense. It was building towards that with the last couple of issues, so it didn't disappoint on that aspect. Nothing else happened. We didn't get like an off-panel fight where like KT just like knocked him out or something, But it also reminded me of like if we could have had that fight during Bloodshot Salvation, I probably would think a little bit higher of that run overall, because I do think that the ending of Salvation is rather weak. Right. He gets taken out off panel, but I don't know, man. Like I have a little bit of issues with this book, just a little bit. What did you think of the writing?
Overall, I don't know, and I guess not overall, but I don't know. It was a weird book. I mean, just to close it out the way it closed out, it seemed like it was trying to put 20 pounds of turds in a 10-pound bag. And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean it was trying to put a lot of information in a short little spot. Like there was supposed to be more to the story than what we actually got. I mean, throwing Exo in the way it threw Exo in, and then just this ultimate fight scene with Harmony / Rampage was pretty cool. They changed up the way, definitely changed up the way Rampage looked quite a bit. Yeah. With such what I would think is a formidable foe of Rampage, I felt like it just gave quick work to him. And it was like, okay, we did it for you. You asked for continuity stuff. There you go. Goodbye. right? And so I felt like they needed to keep him around. They needed to make it a little bit more, like having him come in the very last arc on a 3-issue arc didn't really do what I think they could have been done. The room to write, the room to grow with that character in the fight. I just felt like there could have been more there. The way they got taken over with Wiggins and KT, and then just the way he kind of took out Rampage was kind of cool. The way they're both standing there holding each other's guts with their fist in each other's stomach, that was pretty cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But I mean, ultimately, I felt like this issue felt rushed. It felt like it was putting a lot in a little bit of real estate.
Yeah, I thought like going off to the beginning of the book, I thought like everything with EXO was kind of like unnecessary, because at the very end, at the beginning of the book, he's bitching about Bloodshot and nanites and all this kind of stuff, and then at the end of it, he shows up to be like, oh, like you could have just gotten Unity involved, and instead you just went off on your own. Like, what do you care? Like, you're not his boss, dude. Like, go back, deal with your own green nanites in the ocean, dude. Okay, but to me, it just seemed like he wasn't really needed. He didn't need to be involved in the book really much at all, except to just like get mad at Bloodshot. I do like the fight. Like I said, I was pretty happy that we finally kind of get that, because the previous runs had shown it, kind of building up to that. So I'm glad Rampage and Bloodshot fought. He's definitely written to be like, because we made this comment last time on the storyline where it was like, oh, like he goes to that, like, it's basically like
a rally.
Yeah, the rally. Yeah. And it's obvious that, like, it's even in this issue too, like when it brings up things with him, it's just like he's meant to portray like a right-wing dickhead. And I'm not saying everybody that's right-wing or conservative is a dickhead. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's a right-wing dickhead. He's meant to be like it's not like a thing where it's like, oh, everybody's cool. It's just like the one guy you see that like is a little bit like conservative or swings that way is like a complete prick. So it was kind of funny like that, where I just thought like, yeah, they're not beating around the bush on this one at all. No way. As much as we have praised Pedro Andreo's art, I did think that there was some kind of wonky panels and pages here and there. I didn't like the page. Like the first page with EXO's new armor didn't look very good to me. I'm not a big fan of the new armor.
Yeah, I think I've made that known too, with the new armor design, the grunt piece there, and yeah. I just didn't like it at all. Yeah, and you know what? Like, I think there was a lot trying to be done, and I applaud that. I appreciate that over a lot of like pale backgrounds of simplistic backgrounds. That it felt like there was a lot of scenery trying to be done to it. I've seen a lot worse. I still thought it was fairly good. But yeah. And then, yeah, the Toll story, it just, like, again, I think it just seemed like this PRS section of it, to reintroduce PRS in just 3 issues and be done with the series, just to me didn't seem like that was a great move. It seemed like there was a lot of other open ends with Black Bar, with the Burned, that could have been taken care of. I love that they introduced KT and Wiggins. I think they're, 2 awesome characters that happen, and that were from the movie that they introduced. I thought that was awesome. But ultimately, yeah, I wanted to see more of Rampage. I wanted to see more of that story happen. Like I said, I want to see good villains. I want to see lasting ones that stick around, and not wipe out so quickly. And then, like I say, Toll was a weird addition to this. You know what I mean? I don't know if he needed to be brought back.
He just seemed like a piece put in to be like continuity. There it is. Remember that guy? Remember him? Yeah. Huh? Dole, Mr. Toll. Yep. It's just, I think the problem with this book, and I mean, I don't hate this issue, so like we haven't graded it yet or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, I overall my view is positive of it, but I feel like what happened here was like at some point they're like, you know what? Tim Seeley is not going to stick around past 1 year. He's gone at issue 12. So let's just wrap this shit up, real quick, and put a bow on it. Because we both talked to him in Seattle a couple years ago, and I know that the pandemic changed a whole lot of things for a whole lot of people, Valiant included. But he was a guy who's like, oh, my first year on Bloodshot, I'm going to be doing this, this, and this, and then we're going to do.
He did do 2 years. COVID played a role, right?
Yeah. Time wise, he did 2 years.
Not 24 issues.
Wise, but not his fault. But the thing is, like in that time, he has taken on a lot of other roles in the industry. He's got Money Shot. He's got a Vampire the Masquerade book. He's got work at Heavy Metal. He's got all sorts of books.
He's the
a pretty busy guy.
The EOC or whatever EIC and the editor at Heavy Metal too.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it just seemed like back then he was just coming off of a little stint at DC. So when he was coming on this book, it was like, oh man, like he's going to be here for a couple of years. He's got plans. Everything changes with this. I'm sure I haven't even looked at sales on any of these books for like a long time. I don't even know what the sales numbers look like on Bloodshot right now, but it's kind of too bad, because I think when you talk to a writer and they're that excited about it, and I thought like he was really excited to take on Bloodshot. Mm-hmm. The fact that he was like, yeah, my second year, I'm going to do this stuff. And it's like, wow, I can't wait, man. And for the most part, I have loved this run. I would say this run, even with this ending, for me, ranked a little higher than Salvation. Nowhere near the first run or Reborn for that matter. But I mean, I've had a lot of fun with this. I like a lot of the changes that Tim Seeley brought on board with the character. I like the fact that he made him a little bit more of a personality. Even though it did seem a little weird, I kind of like the fact that like it makes him a little bit more human though. Like when he's kind of cracking jokes or having opinions or putting someone down, even like I know like some people might not like that, but I don't like it when people just write what everybody else does. I mean, I think the easy thing with Bloodshot would just be to write him very emotionless and to not feel anything. But it would have been cool if we could have an issue 13, to be honest. Even with what this is, we're not going to see the character for a year.
Yep. Yeah, I think you have a good point. I do think the ending was better than Bloodshot Rising Spirit and Bloodshot. Yeah.
There's reasons why I don't even mention it. It's just, I mean, like, with the exception of a couple of our friends that worked on the book, Ryan Wynn and Elliot Ray Hall, I really don't like that book, and I hate trashing it because I feel bad for the fact that Ryan worked on it and the fact that Elliot had to like finish it. If
you have to book in Bloodshots, I mean, I think that's part of it, right? When you're scoring this up, I mean, I'm looking up bookending this with Bloodshot Reborn, right? Obviously, that's what it is, and then Bloodshot Rising Spirit, right? Yeah. That's your bookends, from bad to worse, or from great to Bloodshot Rising Spirit.
Terrible.
And so, I mean, when you look at this overall as a run, I mean, I think, like kind of you said, is it kind of towards the middle or a little bit?
I think it is the middle, but a lot of it to me is the originality of it. Just the fact that like it's not the same thing as like everybody else had done. But I mean, like, looking at it now, it's like, oh man, PRS totally feels like it just got shoehorned in the end, like, and I feel like that's just how they put that. And maybe that was like what his plan was to end the book when he was going to end it originally. If he did do it like his second year, like he was saying, maybe he's like, oh, I'll be doing that like at like 22, 23, 24. And instead it's just like, well, pile it in now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish there was another arc to go with it, like a good arc of this, and then one that just, hit with the conclusion of Rampage and those two going at it at the very end. I think that would have been really, really good. Yeah. But I mean, ultimately,
I think there's still continuity issues that people have because we haven't seen Magic. We haven't seen Jesse. We don't know about the Bloodshot Squad. We don't know about Bloodhound. And these are things that people have been asking about this entire run. So there's still no answer about where those characters are at.
Well, let's score up what we thought on this number. What turned out to be the full number 12.
And this is without talking about like the comic story part.
Let's do that after. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll talk about that after. It deserves its own little like chunk of time. You know what? For me, this one like it's gonna be a little unfair. I mean, like to me, my score on this one's actually like a 3.5. I didn't like love this entire issue. I think there was a little bit of issues with the art, and I mean, Pedro Andreo had been like solid the entire time. There were a couple pages where I was just like, he just doesn't look as great. I think like the Exo involvement was kind of wonky, and the fact that like it's just the last issue, and it's just what a bummer that we're gonna end on this note, you know. But yeah, we got some cool stuff. We got the Rampage fight. Zealot showed back up again for just like a minute.
Right.
But yeah, I'd go about 3.5. What about you?
Yeah. From one of our old friends, the old former podcaster, Chris, used to always say, you got to stick the landing on these last issues, right? You got to close it out. And I totally agree with that. That's one thing he would say. And I'm not so sure that the landing was stuck on it. But you know what? I have to agree with you. I'm going to say 3.5. I don't think it was, bad by any means. But like a part of it is being the end, knowing that this is the wrapped up, knowing there's not another issue kind of makes it go down a little bit. And that's because I felt like there was a lot unwrapped or left out there. And it didn't get, the ending was not nearly as good as the number one, right? Like when you compare issue number 1 to issue number 12, that's where you comparing it from the same series. Issue number 1 was phenomenal action, art, like all the way around, and it was excitement. And I just didn't get that big awe from this. I didn't get that whole, like, oh man, like, Bloodshot. And we did get the end at the end. So we know that this is the conclusion of this series, even though it was written in the synopsis. That's not always the case. I think we got with Killers, it was to be returned. We've gotten that with a couple books, to return, even though the Rye book, we got that at the end of Rye. We didn't get that here. And so that was kind of, what it was. We may have got something else that we could talk about here in a minute, but this whole run is over. And, 3.5 with it. I did see some of the art where, like I said, I'm not saying it was bad. I don't think it equaled his quality that he had in issue number 11 too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was rush, if it was time. But I mean, still, I'd like to see Pedro on some more books too. I think he was a really good add to the team for his art team. So,
I mean, and I think one thing to mention too is that like us bashing him for doing a couple bad pages, every artist does a couple bad pages,
right?
Or they do a couple pages that don't quite look like they like they're doing their best work, So it's like I'm not trying to be critical of the guy where I'm like, oh, get him out of here. Like, you know what? Put him on another Valiant book. I'd be totally happy. I'd be really excited for not just for him, but for my own enjoyment.
Right. Yeah, I dig it. And then I mean, we always hit on colors. I think you're going to get Mr. Consistency with Andrew Dahlhaus. So. That's that. And then one thing on this book that this book had that kind of surprised people from the beginning is that there was a little, I don't want to call it a backstory, but it was the back of the book. It was called featuring a backup story. It was not a backup story. And that kind of really threw me off because why do this at the very end of the series?
Yeah, so like what we're saying is like the issue ends with the way it ends. Tim Seeley's run ends, and then we get a 4-page story. I don't want to call him comic historian. His name is Benny Potter.
Yeah,
Benny Potter. He does that show Comic Historian on YouTube, and he knows his stuff. He does what's basically like a synopsis of what's happened in the last couple of runs of Bloodshot. And it's really cool. It'd be a really cool thing, I think, if this showed up in a free comic book day book, where it's like, hey, haven't read Bloodshot for a while. Here's 4 pages to tell you what's kind of gone on with the character to help you get excited for like where we're going to go with him.
It was like a yearbook ending, right?
Yeah. It was just something that felt really out of place here. Like, hey, like here's 4 extra pages. And I mean, that's cool.
Right.
But no dialogue. It was out of place. Yeah, no dialogue.
It was actually reminding me if I was watching one of his videos and he had a video that was, who is Bloodshot? Bloodshot is Ray Garrison, a creative project writing spirit, and he took out the Gen Zero kids, but he has always failed. I don't know. It just reminded me of something that I would have heard from it. But I mean, it does do a great job of summing up everything Bloodshot up into this actual series and Bloodshot Rising Spirit. But the end of the page is the very last page of that is what got me excited. So Bloodshot Returns, or they calling it Death Returns 2022.
Yeah, so I guess like the one good thing about this, and it's the same thing with X-O Manowar, is that like we know the character's getting shelved, but we have an idea of when the character's coming back. So next February, which is kind of weird because, and it's only weird to me because like generally March has been the big launch month. Like it seems like they've always tried to have like the really big book hit in March. That's what gets everybody excited for like what the rest of the slate's going to be. But February 2022. Or I guess maybe it's just 2022. I don't know.
Yeah.
I took it as 2. I took it as like 2, like February, and then 22.
Oh, really? Oh, no, 2022.
It could be like some other time too. So I'm not the brightest guy. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And I got a fucking temper. So like this could just be like something totally different. I'm just reading into it my own way. But yeah, next year we'll get Bloodshot, and I don't know, man. Let's, we got to get some books. I mean, this isn't like necessarily like the new regime's problem as much as like it's just been Valiant's problem after they got past like the first wave of books. Like, let's get some of these books past 12.
Yeah, I mean, you got that great X-O run. You had the great Harbinger run. You had a pretty good Archer and Armstrong run at the beginning. God, Ninjak was a great run. Rai had the way Rai did it seemed like a sustainable run, which was really cool with the breaks. It didn't get a whole lot of series though. It didn't get a whole lot of issues. But yeah, I agree. It's like it'd be nice to get that long run, but I mean, sales are going to determine that. It's going to be pushed off on sales. If you're not selling the book, it's not going to happen. And that's where that's at. And I want to touch base, close out this comic story and conversation is Juan Jose Rip's art. And that was, I dig it. I think he did some really good flashback art. And from what I've known or heard, I actually think I talked to Benny at like Emerald City 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And he told me he wrote this story for Bloodshot like 3 years ago. So it was a long time ago. And if you remember, I think at that Emerald City Comic, that must have been 2017 because he and Rob Comics Explained were they led the panel. There was a Valiant comic panel that they led with those guys. So, and that was during just before Ninjak vs. Valiant Universe came out. So I think it was 2017, and then 2018 I think is when Ninjak Versus came out. And just all of the other things.
Was that
came
the year
out.
that I met you there?
No, it was the year after, I believe.
Oh,
I don't think you were at that one. That was the year you didn't come. I think you went to C2E2 year.
No, I went to WonderCon.
Yeah, that's right, WonderCon.
The year that I didn't go, I went to WonderCon. And I missed you guys so much, even though I didn't. I barely knew you. I was like, oh, I just wish I could go because.
So this was just kind of, from what I understand, I could be wrong, could be totally different story. But it was sitting around for Valiant for a couple years before they got to where they're at right there. So
yeah, and I thought he did a good job with it. He knew his history on it. And one thing I saw a lot of people complaining about was like, well, why does he get to do this? Why does he get to have a story? And it's like, if he wrote the story that many years ago, there's a possibility that like there was a different group of people running Valiant when he wrote this and sold the story to him or whatever, So.
Well, and it probably wasn't even sold. It was probably, hey, will you do this for us?
Yeah, and he used to do work on the Humble Bundles. They used to have those little like videos that he did on those. So I mean, it's not like he doesn't have like any knowledge of the characters, and
we're saying
he already had a foot in the door.
We're saying he wrote this comic. I wouldn't even say that he wrote this comic. He reviewed this comic much in the same way he reviews the stories on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's just going to give him writer credit since the way it is now. But it was a lot like the captions he would do if he was doing a Who's Bloodshot story. Very similar on recapping that. So, but yeah, and on that, Bloodshot coming 2022. that is where I'm excited. And then at the end, I also get that advertisement. I do need to buy that BCW store folio with Bloodshot on it.
Yes.
And then that Shadow Man deluxe cover is going to be pretty awesome. But I'm getting frustrated with them doing colored or non-colored white spines on their deluxes. All of the other ones before were all colored, and the last 4 of them, I believe, I could go back there and count, all have white spines now. And that's
do they really?
Yeah, so they don't kind of go with that color motif that was happening. So change the flow of it.
Come on, Valiant.
Yep.
God damn it.
My shelf, man. If they're all going to be white, they're all white. That's great, but they're not already. So
well, you have to have the different colors. I mean, like Shadowman Volume 2's got that nice like bright blue. Like I'm trying to think like what like a teal almost. Oh, I just love how it looked. Plus, it was a great cover. One of the things that I always bitch about when I had the deluxe editions, I would always be like, okay, when they make like the Faith one, it's got to have this cover. When they make like Shadow Man, it's got to be like this cover. It never is. It's always like a cover I would never expect them to use.
Yeah, some of it. You know what? The one I think it was the Secret Weapons. I'm glad I got the local comic book day one because it had the better cover than the one that came out on the regular. But yeah, I've seen them with a couple of books doing that, but I'm counting up there. I think it's 4 books. The last 4 hardcovers have had that. So Britannia, the second print of Divinity, what is it? Harbinger Wars 2, Ninja K, all with white. I mean, and then we're gonna get Shadow Man with white, and then I think I saw the new Livewire was solicited for later in the year with a white one as well. So
change it.
Change it up, guys. Change it up. We got to see those different colors. I think that's one thing that make it look flashy on a. It's cool because if you ever look at somebody's comic book collection, and you could totally spot the Valiant books by that, like the way those are. They look great on a shelf.
Yeah, I mean, a counterpoint to that though is a lot of people who like buy, say, all the X-Men trade paperbacks that are coming out right now post Hickman. They all have the same color and everything. Like those Dawn of X like trade paperbacks, they all look the exact same pretty much, except for like the number. So maybe part of it's that. Maybe there's something there that people are like, hey, we would rather have them all that way. To me, like I like having the different colors. I see it exactly as you do. Just keep the same design. So like that black box at the top with Valiant and the V. Yeah. You got to keep that. You got to keep the way they look. If they ever change the spines, people should riot, because there's nothing worse than like when you have like 20 books and then all of a sudden like they're like, hey, you know what? Screw everything before. We changed everything with the way they look now. Everything's changed around. It's the worst. I hate it. I used to have, probably like 20 or so of those DC Absolutes. And then all of a sudden they just changed something with like the logo because DC can't keep a logo to save their life. It's just like, this looks like shit then.
Well, did that with Tom King's Batman run. I think the first 4 had the blue and white stripes that they kind of had because of the Rebirth. And then they went to like, more of a basic look that didn't have that. And since it was still running off of Rebirth, I just felt like they should have kept that uniform just to have like a good run. Like, okay, match the run together instead of changing it up. And then to change that, the new run or the continued run of it, the next hardcover came out with like a smaller size. It was more like a trade size than it was a deluxe size, and so it's like doesn't look good on a shelf.
Yeah,
so,
I want to say that like Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run when they put out the 3 omnibus of that.
Oh yeah,
I want to say 2 of them have.
Well, one of them has like
one logo, and the third one has like a different logo. And then I think now, because they've been reprinted, you can get them they're all just like different logos.
Yeah, I have those, and they, you know what? They look like the same logo what I have there, but they're like the fonts are slightly off. Not the, you know what I mean? They're not like boom straight. They're like this one's here, this one's here, this one's here. Like one's up, low, down, beside. And then I kind of wish like the Blackest Night deluxe that I have right here would have kind of matched it a little bit too. So
yeah, I got all those
doesn't.
books somewhere. I want to get them bound at some point, but it'd be a lot of volumes.
Yeah.
Especially if you go all the way through like Brightest Day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
There's a big box collection that's going to be coming out soon.
Yeah, I saw that. But those things cost like $500.
Oh God, they're expensive. Yeah. And then up on board, I have, speaking of things coming out soon, what do we got next? Next week, Savage #2. And then, yes, March 21st, that Shadow Man, Andy Diggle. And you own the middle cover to it, Shane.
Yeah.
We got Savage 3, April 14th. We got Exo Man War Book 1, trade paperback on the 21st. And then the long-awaited, very anticipated Shadow Man #1, April 28th. So,
man, a lot of Savage in our future. You know, hey, I know that people at Valiant hear this afterwards. It would be awesome because we just don't have a lot to talk about, but I'd love to know what the bonus content is in that Shadow Man book, because I'm not going to have it, but because then maybe we could talk about it. We've read the story. You know, they used to send out PDFs of the deluxe editions. Yeah, we need episode content.
Yep, give us that deluxe information. We love it, and that way we could talk about just that piece. I think it was really cool. I think I was listening to a conversation the other day, and I kind of bounced this off of you because I thought it was a really good conversation, and they were asking, in comics in general, what is the best legacy character? And so I was thinking Valiant. What's the best legacy Valiant character? Because I think that was a kind of like a theme, a little that was coming out with a bunch of books with Valiant at that time, because you had the Shadow Man, which really brought out the history of the Shadow Man, right? The previous Shadow Men that were there before, and then you had Ninja K, which also talking about the previous ninjas in the MI6 program. So you had that, and I just felt like there was a little bit, and then we kind of had that with Bloodshot Reborn too, with the Bloodshot squad, right? It was kind of like a legacy of Bloodshot, and then I think even Exo Manowar kind of had that with Armor Hunters and everything, when they were talking about all the different Exo armors that have been out before. So it's been a long given trope to comic books, and there's between those right there, there's some that have legacy.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, it's hard to say like what maybe ends up being the better one to me. I was stoked on the Bloodshot Squad when they first appeared, but they're all pretty similar, because they're just like a bunch of dudes with kind of like the same ability. And the only thing that sets them apart really is just like the war that they fight in,
Right.
And I mean, that's the same thing with like anybody who takes on the Shadow Loa. But I thought that maybe that chunk of the storyline was a little bit more interesting. Right. Because it wasn't just like they're in a different war. Like that part of Diggle's run on Shadow Man takes place in different places entirely around the world, and in different it goes back to like the 1800s, and it was just kind of like all over the place, but in such a good way. And I really think too, like that run of Shadow Man is the best Shadow Man run that we've had since the early 90s Valiant.
Agreed. I
easily. I love what Justin Jordan did, but Justin Jordan is not on the revamp long enough for my taste. And as much as I could go pull book after book out of my collection of Peter Milligan's work that's awesome, none of it would be a Shadow Man, which is a real bummer. Because I remember when he was going to be on the book, I was so excited.
Yep.
I just don't like it. It's one of those books where I'm just like, this is not anything that gets me excited at all.
It was the End of Times, right? So,
End of
days.
And some end times.
End times, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like reading that, and then like the last 4 issues he did on the run, it's just no thanks. But I thought what Diggle did on this was great because he really did kind of bring the character to a place where like it got rid of all the crappy baggage. They had him ready to do stuff, and the book ends in a way where I feel like Cullen Bunn doesn't have to do a bunch of work to reestablish the character at all.
Right.
You know,
it did such great justice to leave that character where it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
To better the character, leave him in a great spot. I really think he did a lot of justice, and it's funny because I think sometimes that's good when that happens. Sometimes it's I'm going to leave him in this disarray, and I'm going to watch somebody get him out because that helps to write the story as well too. Because I really thought he did a great job doing that and getting out of that magpie. That was a great job, and that was phenomenal that we were able to have that because, I mean, Matt Kent helped with
Rapture.
Rapture. He helped that with a lot with the Rapture, and that was a great story with both Matt, with Ninjak and Shadow Man. That I loved that, and it really set Andy Diggle up. But he did a good job of totally pulling that out, reestablishing the status quo for Shadow Man. And I think Cullen Bunn's in a great spot for it. But the one that I was thinking that I think has one of the coolest histories, one of the coolest array of future things that can be told based just off legacy is the Ninja program with Killers. That there's just so many cool characters. Most of them are still alive. There's a lot of mythos around it as well that is really deep as well. But Shadow program as well with the voodoo, Shadow program, Shadow Man and the voodoo, and just the really dark places that can go off is still great as well. But I just think overall legacy to a degree and what that legacy can produce ongoing now, because of Killers, I love the Ninja program as far as ongoing legacy. And then Scott Bloom does a great one, of course, that has the amazing Geomancers. Would love to get like a Geomancer book and see. I think you've said it. The Tama Eternal Warrior needs to happen. We need to get some more of that. So hoping that I would love to see Dan Abnett do some Eternal Warrior.
Yeah. Man, I can't even. It's too hard to answer the legacy thing because I love Shadow Man, and I think if Ninja K never happened, there'd be no doubt in my mind it'd be Shadow Man. But like, I loved Ninja K, and Ninja K is like just a phenomenal book, man. It's like it's in the top. It's one of the top books Valiant's ever done. So for anyone listening, that might be a bold claim. Especially when I think about the fact that it's Christos Gage, and I've never really loved his work outside of Anywhere, but that book it just blows the doors off, man. It's so good, huh?
I loved he did the best Shadow Man or Spider-Man story in the video game.
Oh yeah,
his writing.
It's weird, how that all kind of all these things kind of just happened out of nowhere. Where it's I was because I have the game, and I was the game's great. Oh, he wrote it. And that's he's doing Ninja K. Oh, okay. And it was awesome. And
in that same time, he also had Daredevil, the season 1 Daredevil on Netflix.
Yeah.
Another great one. So he had a lot of stuff at once. And his Bloodshot Hardcourt was ran short, I believe. Something happened that cut that one short as well. So kind of stinks that keeps happening. But ultimately, some good stuff coming out. And thank you for, entertaining me in that thought. And I think I would give that to everybody who's watching too. Who do you think the best legacy characters are within Valiant, and also within comic books in general? Which comics in general have the best legacy that you guys liked? Do you have an answer for yourself on that outside
of Valiant? Oh man, the thing is I love I don't know. It'd be something Marvel related from when I was a kid. The problem is that nothing that's new really like grabs me.
Yeah.
The only thing I could even kind of think of would be like X-Men in that regard, because like the things Hickman's done, like it's always been good. But you know who it is? I think well, even though it's just like one person's legacy, it's Daredevil. Daredevil's like the most consistently well-written character like out of the big two characters.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you look at like the entire history of him versus like a lot of them, it's really weird how like people really bring like an A game when writing Daredevil.
Yeah, that's cool. I could say that too, and I'm thinking like legacy of multiple characters that have came through that role, played that homage.
Yeah, and he's had it only a tiny bit like that, but I also just think like if you think about like the overall like Matt Murdock is that character. He doesn't. I mean, like right now it's like Elektra, but like spoiler alert, But I just think the legacy of that character like has always been good with just one character, like one person under the cowl.
Right.
And there's just a ton of great after great runs on the book.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking with mine, I think I would have to go just because of what the characters have done after would be the Boy Wonder. I think Robin would, what's happened with him, the many people that have played him, but seeing where Nightwing is, seeing where Red Robin is, seeing where Red Hood is, and then to me, one of the best rendition of Robin right now is Damian Wayne, and it's just to me, I think that one, just that character, that role, that superhero name, costume, what all comes with it has been pretty awesome. So,
have you always liked Damian like since he was introduced?
Yeah. I just loved his attitude. I dug Damian. Don't get me wrong. I still think Dick Grayson's probably the best Robin, but I think he's a better Nightwing.
Yeah.
To that degree, I think they're all in really good places as far as like the character themselves and who they are as superheroes now is really good. But I love Damian as that. I think he just embodies that, and yeah.
I was gonna say I love all the Super Sons stuff, like with him and Jonathan Kent, because both characters are so different, but they work really well. And there's something kind of cool about like the kid versions. They're fun. And one thing I really hate that DC has done is that they let Brian Bendis age up Jonathan Kent. I think it's awful. They should have just kept him as a kid.
Yeah, he should age differently because of it, but
yeah.
All right, man. Well, it looks like we'll see each other next week with Little Savage #2.
Yeah, be here or don't be. Are you listening?
or just listen to us while you're driving down the road on Spotify or something.
Yep.
Pull us up that way if you can't always watch. But we appreciate you guys chatting. Scott Bloom, you've been on there chatting tonight. Please appreciate that. Anybody else who's jumped on? We've had a couple people jump on throughout the show.
I was say Dario Hernandez showed up, and I've been following him.
Dario.
Yeah, he's been working on his own book, so good luck on that, Dario. I've been checking out your pages; they look cool.
Awesome. Well, everybody, y'all, this is it. 187. 187.
The big 187.
And this show's dead. Bye.